Welcome to the Inspiring Victory Show, where we help you double your business, double your impact, and change the world. And I am so excited because today we have Linda Hollander, who is a genius at something almost everybody would want to know how to do. And I bet you are one of them. Linda's got an amazing background. She's been doing this for almost 20 years. Not only has she produced incredible events and still does, but she's also figured out sort of how to crack the code on getting amazing sponsors, including, I'll get this correctly, Citibank, FedEx, American Airlines, Bank of America, Staples, Walmart, and IBM. So she's really the queen of how do you get sponsors, and has a company dedicated to helping other companies and organizations figure out how they can get great sponsors, where it's a real win-win both for the organization and for you. So I wanted to ask you a bunch of questions about how we actually do this. You are our absolute expert on this. I don't know anyone who knows as much as you do about this topic. So help us out. When we say to ourselves, oh my gosh, we're doing an event, or we have a show, a show or a podcast or whatever that would require or would be really, really great to have a sponsor for, what is the first thing we should know? What is the first thing we should do?
First thing you should do is think about your audience. The definition of sponsorship is connecting a company to people who buy stuff. And that's why sponsors give you money that you don't have to pay back. So we like to say demographics are destiny. So I'll tell you just a little bit of how I got started, because I think you'll see how you can do this. So I was doing an event called the Women's Small Business Expo. Starting a business changed my life, got me out of the poverty trap. I started the business with my best friend from school. We met when we were 13 years old. We knew when we grew up, if we do anything together, it would be amazing. And we took it to a multi-million-dollar business. And I wanted to show other women how to do what I had done. So I thought of this Women's Small Business Expo. So we're all taught to have these big ideas, right? But nobody says, hey, here's how to fund that idea. Because when you have that big idea, you realize I need resources, I need capital, I need money. So that's when I found out about these things called sponsors. So what I did was I researched the heck out of the women's business market, found some very interesting stuff that women are starting businesses at twice the rate of men. And the really cool statistic is that women make or influence over 85% of the purchasing decisions in America. And that's how I got my first sponsors, because I said, would you like to connect with the biggest spending block on the planet, which is women? And they said, yes. So that's what you do. Immediately research your demographic.
Wow, what an extraordinary story too. Thank you for sharing that. That's really something to have accomplished. Congratulations. Wow. All right. And I think what's nice is that you help other people figure out how to do this. I always think, learn from the mistakes of others. You don't have time to make them all yourself. Are there any big mistakes that people should avoid when they're trying to look for sponsors?
The biggest mistake, believe it or not, Sarah, is not asking for enough money, because if you're asked for too little, you're going to hurt yourself in the world of corporate sponsorships, because you're going to tell your sponsors basically that you have nothing of value and it's not worth their time. Sponsorship is a team sport. You're going to have what's called a champion in a company, but then they have to sell you internally, meaning their boss is going to say, well, why would we sponsor this? And they have to really explain why you're going to add value to that particular company. So charge enough money, because you're going to have a lot of people involved in this, and you want to establish your value in the beginning. And you can't really do like a very low sponsor fee the first year and then the second year double it or triple it. It just doesn't work that way. And what we really want is for you to have recurring revenue. Get sponsors this year, the next year, and the next year, and the same sponsor. I've had that with Citibank and FedEx, and it's delicious. That's why you want to charge enough money and establish your value.
Well, that brings us to another great question, which is, how do you know how much is the right amount to charge?
Yeah, that's really hard, the valuation piece, because there's
Yeah.
this magic number where if it's too low, not so good, too high, they get sticker shock. I'll give you a little bit of a guideline. Most of our clients get between 10,000 and up to $100,000 from each sponsor. And that's a pretty good guideline for if you're just getting started, because you're not at the point where you could charge millions of dollars yet, like some properties that we know. So that's kind of where I would start.
Wow, that's a good range, but at least it tells us, I think you're right. And I've also noticed that women have a tendency to charge very little compared to sometimes men, speaking of men versus women. And yeah, I think you're right. They don't take anybody too seriously. If you're not saying, hey, this is really valuable, they're going to say, yeah, you're right. It's not that valuable. So that's a really interesting point. So charge enough so that they think there's going to be some real value there, especially when you know there is. How do you identify potential sponsors and let them know that there's some value there for them?
Great question. Well, once again, we're going to go back to the daily lifestyle of somebody in your audience. So I'll just take women business owners because we can both relate to that, right? So what kind of things do we buy? We buy office supplies and shipping, and we have a bank account, and we buy insurance. But here's a cool thing. I want you to expand your categories in making what we call the sponsor wish list. And it all starts with a thought. So I had all these great sponsors like Staples and, the ones you mentioned, the banks, but Walmart calls me and they were not even on my radar. But then I thought, oh, of course, women buy for their businesses, but they also buy in their personal lives. They buy consumer goods and they shop at Walmart. So think of all the things that a typical person in your audience buys, and that's how you're going to identify your potential sponsors. Another way to identify your potential sponsors is to look at what similar properties are doing. What you do is called a property in the world of corporate sponsorships. Your property could be your business, your podcast, your nonprofit charity, your book, your public speaking, your blog. So look at what similar people are doing and look who their sponsors are. And people say, well, Linda, isn't their budget spent? Absolutely not. So you don't have to educate them about the value of playing in your space because they're already there.
Ooh, that is very clever. Very clever. Look at you. Yeah, I remember, for years we did public seminars and we would always have sponsors, which I kind of fell into not having you to educate me at the time. But it seemed sort of logical because it was, we needed cell phones or we needed press at, in every city we would go into. And so sometimes for us, it was just a matter of, hey, this is how much it would be for you to be a sponsor for the 5,000 people that we're going to have in the room. And if they came up short, we would say, what else do you have that we might want? And we always ended up with gobs of free radio time or TV time or, press of various different kinds, if that's what they did. And so, yeah, it was interesting how sometimes it was a combo platter of things that we were looking for. And again, we were real babies at it. And, you have it down to a science. So I love the ideas that you have around that. I also find that I've been speaking, I've spoken to 3,000 groups and 3.5 million participants now. And what I found sometimes is people will get sticker shock about what it costs to bring in a professional speaker that's at my level now after doing this 20 some odd years. I started when I was 4, as you know. But, one of the things that I found was to be able to say, well, could you get a sponsor or to help fund having, the flight, maybe an airline wants to get in front of your market, or somebody that would want to stand up and have me say nice things about them and you say nice things about them and have their flyers all over everything. And I'm amazed how many times they go to their banker, they go to the airline that they do business with or whatever. And those people, you say, yeah, sure. We'll kick in 10 or 20 grand. And they think, how did that happen? So what else can you do in terms of how do you make those inroads? How do you connect to people who might be a great sponsor for you once you've identified it in the way that you suggested?
Okay, well, let's talk about the media sponsors first, because you mentioned media, and you could get media as sponsors. I got a radio station that gave me $25,000 worth of advertising, and not a dime came out of my pocket. And that adds value to your proposal and your offering to your sponsors if you have media. So that's a cool thing. So I love that. I'm sorry, what was the other question?
That was a great answer. Geez, I wish I'd known you sooner. My next question would be naturally, how do we find them, get to them, connect to them as those potential sponsors once we've identified who'd probably be interested and who we could be good value for?
The best way to introduce yourself to your sponsors is email. That's how sponsors want you to introduce you to them. They don't want to be surprised by a phone call. I got lucky because when I got started, I cold called and I got some people to talk to me, but it's increasingly hard to get to people by phone now. So introduce yourself by email, then call them. Another way to introduce yourself to sponsors is a direct message on social media. That gets past the email clutter because you can imagine that sponsors get a lot of emails. So
yeah,
you could
Walmart
DM
probably
them.
gets 1,000 a day, right?
Absolutely. And that gets past that. So let me tell you the story of my first sponsor. So I think a lot of people will relate to this because, I just had an idea in my little brain to do this Women's Small Business Expo. And I think this is important for people to know. Nobody knew who I was except for my cat and my brother-in-law. So I had no fan base, no following, because people think, oh, well, when I get X number of followers, then I'll go after sponsors. Don't wait. Do not wait. So I got the guy. I was in a traffic jam and I look up and I see a billboard for Bank of America. And I said, oh my God, what if they could be a sponsor of mine? But I buried the idea for 2 weeks because I didn't want to get rejected. I self-sabotaged. I was so afraid because I just had an idea in my head. I didn't know if people would come to my event. I didn't know if it had legs, but my mission, like yours, was to help people. And I finally picked up the phone, called Bank of America, and I got the guy who could greenlight the sponsorship. So I came in, I handed him my sponsor proposal, and you're going to need a sponsor proposal. And, he hands it back to me and says, yes, we will sponsor you. And it was over $10,000, my very first sponsorship with Bank of America. And wow. I know I wanted to do that. I wanted to scream, but I'm in a fancy bank building. I'm wearing my one good suit and
with the one awesome suit.
Exactly. Oh. So I wiped my hand off the back of my suit because I was so nervous. My hand was all sweaty. I shook his hand. I said, thank you so much. And then when I got to my car, I kind of did the happy dance because there's nothing like the feeling of getting your first sponsor because somebody believes in you, they're investing in you, and that somebody is a leading edge brand, and one sponsor leads to another. You kind of read the roster of sponsors that I've had, but that was how I got my very first one. And I wanted to tell that story because if I can do something like that, anybody could do something like that.
Oh, that's so powerful. And I think you're absolutely right. I hear people all the time saying, well, I don't want to ask people to be a sponsor. I've only got, 100 followers, or I've only got this many downloads or that many views or whatnot. But sometimes sponsors like getting in on something that's exciting and moving forward and is, they can help you get to the people you want to get to, and you can help them along the way get to who they want to. And people, over the years, I've discovered people buy for unusual reasons that you might not guess. Sometimes, because they just believe in you. We have a wonderful sponsor, I'm sure you already know, who's been amazing, and that's Meritess Bott of Bott and Associates. In case you ever need estate planning, call her up. She's fantastic. I mean, I promote her all the time, whether she was a sponsor or not. I would always be doing that. But she just happened to kindly believe in the show and the mission of what we were doing at the Inspiring Victory show and said, I would love to be your sponsor. I about fell over. I didn't even ask her. And the fact that she volunteered, that big boost it gave all of us on the show. So sometimes people, they want to be a part of something exciting. They may know your market already, know you already. I think people sometimes are afraid to ask people that they know or ask people that they know who they know, because again, we're all waiting until we're perfect or until you're at a point where you think people will get excited. But I love your story because, yeah, you didn't have all the things that you have now, but you had a mission. You love to help people. You're right. We both feel that way. And it was a way for them to get into something that they could be excited and passionate about. And boy, did that ever pay off for them, because your events became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and still are because of all that you do. I am so incredibly honored to have you as a part of the Inspiring Victory tribe at the Inspiring Victory Show. Please do us a favor. We really need your help. Please like, subscribe, share, write a comment. It makes a huge difference with how many people we can reach here at the Inspiring Victory Show, and it makes a big difference to me personally. I want to make sure that we're providing content to as many people as we possibly can so they can grow and succeed. So we'd love to have you continue your membership here at the Inspiring Victory Show. It's free. Helping us out costs nothing, but it makes a huge difference in how many people we can help. So double your business, double your impact, and change the world. And thank you so much for being a part of this extraordinary community. Thank you. All right, so we know what the best approach is. That's really helpful. What should be in a sponsor package? Because you alluded to that. You need to have a sponsor package. What should be in it?
Okay, here's what goes into the sponsor proposal: a description of what you do, the right compelling sponsor benefits, because most people think sponsorship is just about slapping logos everywhere, and it goes way beyond that. Your demographics, I've talked enough about that. Any testimonials that you have, you could put in there. Your marketing plan. When we work with clients, we call it the ultimate marketing plan. And the ultimate marketing plan has a mix of the digital platforms and traditional media, because remember, you could get traditional media as sponsors and not pay anything. And sponsors are traditional. So they like traditional media. And then the last thing you put in your sponsor proposal is storytelling. Storytelling is so important because you heard my story just now, right? So people remember stories. The stories create what we call an emotional connection, and you want to show the humanity of what you do. And a lot of people think, well, I'm sending this sponsor proposal to a big company and I'm going to put facts and charts and figures, and it's dry and dull and boring. And we want you to stand out amongst the crowd. I put in my sponsor proposals that I was in the poverty trap, that I was in an abusive relationship, because guess what? Your relationship, it's not with a faceless corporation. It's with a human being. And it's gotten me sponsors because you want to show that you're vulnerable. You don't want to just put what we call the pretty bio of your education and your accomplishments and all that. You really, really want to create something that is connecting you to another person.
Yeah, people tend to forget that you're right. It's not that faceless corporation. An actual human has to get there and get this and get excited about it. And they're not going to get excited about that. How many people get that excited about charts and graphs page after page? Yeah, definitely. And your story is compelling, but everybody has a compelling story, whether they realize it or not. They have a mission that's exciting, or they have a background that's interesting. And I think most of us tend to forget what's interesting about us and not necessarily put that forth. But yeah, there's a reason that everybody goes to the movies, and very few people spend a Saturday night looking at, charts and graphs and, prospectuses and stuff. So yeah, I think that that's a great point that most people forget, is there is a human touch and a human connection to that. So break down some of the pieces that go into that. Are there any traps we need to watch out for within building them, aside from don't make it 8,000 pages and don't make it 82 charts and 14 graphs in a row? Anything else?
Well, we've talked about graphs and all that, but when we work with clients, we do infographics. We do a persona. We do all these things that make it easy to read and easy to skim. And that's how sponsor proposals have changed, because now nobody wants to read long form copy. I get a lot of proposals that people are trying to use, and it's all text and it's no graphics. You think of how we get information now: social media, texts, posts, although, we want bite-sized information.
YouTube videos. Now I see some of these proposals have video in them now and didn't before. And if you think about the way that websites used to be, remember they were like 95% they copy, and there'd be like one photo on the front page, everybody all excited. And now it's completely flipped. It's 95% video and photos and 5% copy on the really big websites. And there's a new study that I read this past month that said 81% of the population are now scan readers, which means they're scanning through for the photos. There's, things that create emotion, maybe a quick video, and, a big hook line that says, this is what it's all about. Yeah, they're not going to sit down and read it like it's War and Peace or something, I don't think, anymore. That's a really good point. I see that in my world too. And I never even thought about how that would be connected to going after sponsors. And then you told us a little bit about how to get media partners. Is there anything else we should know about that?
Well, that's why the sponsor proposal is the most important, but the least understood document, because you use the same proposal to get your media partners. The only difference is media is usually what we call in kind. So with media, it's an exchange of trading of benefits, but usually they're not going to pay you unless you're the Olympics or something. Usually with media, you use that, you leverage it to get your cash sponsors. So you get media partners in the exact same way. Now, here's the thing that I learned, and I want to pass this on to you because it was a mistake that I made. At one time, I was so happy for any crumbs that a media source would give me. But then one guy, and this goes back to traditional media, at a newspaper said, "Oh, I bet you're going to want the $10,000 package that we have, right?" And I said, yeah. So you trade dollar for dollar. So if you have a $10,000 package, you get their $10,000 package. You don't just get, let's just get back to the newspaper. You don't get like a little 1/4-inch column ad on page 32. I had a business journal as a partner, and they gave me full page color ads and things like that. So, trade dollar for dollar, and don't just be happy for scraps when you could have the whole banquet.
I think that's a good point in life, let alone when it comes to sponsorships. Absolutely. Really, what's the worst thing they say? No, or not. So we'll give you a little less than that. But yeah, if you start small, there's no place to negotiate. You're going from scraps to crumbs. And I like the fact that, get a whole banquet. Nicely put. And then you're talking a little bit about research and the benefits to the sponsor. Is there anything more that you can share with us about the research that goes into it and determining the benefits that a sponsor is going to get excited about?
Okay, the best way to determine the benefits is to ask them what they want. And
that's my theory on all things, actually.
So when I
agree completely.
I'll tell you my FedEx story, because when I got FedEx as a sponsor, I said, well, what are you looking for? And that's when I was doing the Women's Small Business Expo. And he says, we don't want a vendor booth. We don't want signage, because everybody thinks they know FedEx. We want the women's business market. We want the home-based business market. And they think that we are the expensive white glove shipping company. And we want to, get this, rebrand FedEx. So, and FedEx that I found when I was working with them had very economical services, just like UPS, which most people use with a home-based business. So I said, well, great. So we gave them press releases. We gave them speaking opportunities. We gave them an award presentation because they wanted to get a message across of rebranding their company. And guess what, Sarah? We also just threw in the signage and threw in the vendor booth, because why not, right? We over-delivered.
Anyway.
And then they became a recurring sponsor. They gave us what we call renewals. So they sponsored us for 5 years because we kept asking, okay, what do you like about our program? What don't you like about our program? And they felt like we listened to them. And that's the most important thing, because a lot of people, when they have a first conversation with a sponsor, they get nervous and they just start going into their presentation, but you're missing that golden opportunity to have them open up to you, to make it a fact-finding expedition and really learn what they want. Because like you said, sponsors want different things. So that's the key.
It's almost like pretending you're their consultant on, if you're going to do an event, for example, what would be the things that you asking those power questions that you were talking about, which were really good, by the way, and getting that out of them so that you can then find creative ways to deliver that. And you have a lot of creativity and imagination. I love the fact that you're giving them a special award. That's brilliant. They have to show up if they're getting an award too. Then at least they're in the room for their sponsorship, and asking again, okay, you want to be rebranded this way. How can we get that message out to people so that they then wanted to do it 5 years in a row? Congratulations. That's extraordinary. Are there any other insider secrets on getting, once you have the sponsor, on getting them to renew?
It's all about relationships. And I know I've said that a lot because sponsorship is a relationship business. So one thing you're going to want to do is what we call a fulfillment report. Sometimes it's called the renewal report, because you want to photograph and document everything. So I'll just go back to FedEx. So when we gave them that award presentation, guess what? When she accepted that award, she was underneath the FedEx sign, and we took that picture and we put it in the report. So you basically keep a list of everything that you're doing to promote that sponsor, and you put it in a report. And you go over it with them, I would say at least quarterly. If you're doing an event, this is important. And remember, you don't have to do events to get sponsored. But if you're doing an event, give the report right after the event, because that's when the motivation is highest. That's when you're most likely to get that wonderful renewal. Now, there's informal sponsor relations. So I had American Airlines as a sponsor, and I did a radio interview, but this time I actually drove to the studio and I did the interview, and I mentioned American Airlines in my interview. So I came back home and I just typed off an email and I sent it to the lady at American Airlines. And I said, hey, I just mention you on this radio station, and they have listenership of 75,000 people. And she emails me right back and says, thank you so much. So that's informal relationships. So they love to hear what we call the new information pitch. So if there's any new information you could share with your sponsors, do it. There's people that get a sponsor deal, and we recommend at least 1 year. And then they come back at the end of the year with their handout and say, give me more money. Well, what's the sponsor thinking? Well, what'd you do for me? We never want that conversation to be in the head of a sponsor. So we want the sponsor to absolutely know what you've done for them. And then the renewal is the most natural thing in the world. I have had companies just say, Linda, send me an invoice. I didn't even have to resell them.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, and a lot of what you're talking about is things you can do at a live event. And yes, a lot of the people that listen to our show are speakers and authors and celebrities and have their own podcasts and stuff like that. What can people do when they are doing other types of things? And how do sponsorships differ, if at all, when you're going after something for, say, a podcast or for a book launch or for something else?
Speaking opportunities are golden. Sponsors love to have a speaking opportunity. So if you have a podcast, naturally you could do an interview with them. But even if you don't, even if you have an online property or something else, please just do a Zoom interview with them, do a written interview, give them some kind of an opportunity. Another thing that you can do for your sponsors is social media, of course, and not just a post now and then, have a whole campaign around that particular sponsor. If you're a blogger, mention the sponsor in your blog, but I wouldn't mention them in every time you post a blog, maybe once a month or something. You can also email marketing. Email marketing is wonderful too. And I want you to increase your email list because they're always changing the algorithms with social media. So you want a list that you can control, a proprietary list. And then videos, make your own videos, distribute the sponsor videos. And the award presentation. That award that I gave FedEx cost me $50. But we know that you can make, $10,000, $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 from each sponsor. We want you to have many sponsors so you can afford $50 for an award. And that award presentation, I'll tell you what happened. Basically, we submitted it to the media. It got picked up. We had a professional photographer take the photo. But what they did was they sent an email to all of their employees saying, hey, check us out. We won the Making a Difference Award. They love that, the Making a Difference Award. And the people who work for the company feel good. And employee engagement is a very, very big benefit in sponsorships now because it's hard to hire good talent and keep good talent. All those things I just mentioned are very low cost or no cost, but they have a high perceived value to your sponsors.
Wow, that's just incredible. You are always a font of fabulous information. And I hear that there's more cool stuff we can get a hold of since you are kind enough to be on the show and share it. What is it that people can do to learn more about you if they're looking to find sponsors? And also I hear that there's a great free offer for anybody who is watching or listening to the Inspiring Victory Show. Thank you, by the way.
Okay. Well, my free gift is online. Go to successwithsponsors.com. And when you go to successwithsponsors.com, you're going to get the #1 secret for getting your sponsors. So it's at successwithsponsors.com. If you want to talk to me, we can set up a free sponsor strategy session. You'll see how to do that on the website. But for now, just go to successwithsponsors.com to get your free report on the #1 secret to getting sponsors.
Oh, that's fabulous. I love the name of the site too. And you know more about this than anyone I have ever met. And, it's what I like about you is that you not only if you've done all of these things and you found different solutions to every sponsor issue or challenge that anybody could ever have happen, but you use that sort of innovative style with the sponsors to help them so that they want to be with you year after year after year. And I think that kind of mind is very special. And you have a talent I've always admired. I really appreciate you being on the show. And I know everybody watching and listening is going to be thrilled to have this knowledge, and I'll be running out and getting their own sponsors very soon. So thank you very much. Again, if you want to reach out, you know how to get a hold of Linda. And for you that are watching and listening, we really appreciate having you as a part of the show. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Inspiring Victory Show, where we help you double your business in 1 year or less. Thank you so much.
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, Marites Bott of Bott & Associates.
I'm so honored to get to be with our wonderful sponsor for the Inspiring Victory Show. And I want to make sure you know a little bit more about her and about what they do, because I think it'd be really helpful for all of us as business people and just in our personal lives. Marites does a lot of speaking, as many of you probably know, but I love one of the speeches that she's famous for, which is A Generous Legacy, the Power of Future-Proofing Your Business and your personal life. And that's really what you are all about. So I want to talk a little bit about that with you. And can you give us an example of somebody who's come to you and how you were able to help them that might be able to help all of us as we navigate our financial planning as well as our estate planning for business and for personal?
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, thank you for having me, Sarah. I appreciate it. We do a lot of estate planning, obviously, as well as the financial planning for our clients. And a story that I think is a great way to showcase what we do is this wonderful couple that we met back in, I want to say 2015. They came in for a consultation. So they are certainly a wonderful couple, blended family. So second marriage for both of them. He has children and she does not. Basically, they were saying to me, Meritus, I really want my estate plan to be secure. I want it to be ironclad so it goes to the right people. Particularly the wife was concerned that this money goes to her charities, which she was very, very active in and volunteers quite a bit. She puts her hard-earned money with them. And she also wants to make sure her husband is taken care of as well. So she wanted to do both objectives at the same time. We were like, of course we can help you with that. We want to make sure that we write everything down and just like you said, make it ironclad so that there's no contest. There's nobody trying to get to the money inappropriately. Right. So we created a wonderful estate plan for them. So that was 2015. Now, sadly, she unexpectedly passed a few years later. And her surviving spouse came to us and he really needed help. He was so, of course, distraught and super, super sad. But he was also very concerned about the financial pieces. He wasn't that familiar with financial instruments. There was 13, 14, 15 accounts that she had. And of course, he was like, I'm confused. What do I do with all of this? So we said, okay, we're going to take care of you. We got this. And we were able to really take a hold of all those instruments and all those accounts. And on our financial side of our business, we were able to consolidate them, invest it in very prudent investments and make sure it's easy for him to manage. So we were able to do that within 3 to 6 months. His late wife's wishes of him being able to live on that money and then eventually at his death, give it to her charities is exactly what's going to happen. So wonderful to be able to plan it properly, give her peace of mind. A few years later, we're honoring 100% of her wishes. This money is not going to go to anybody inappropriately. And her beneficiaries, her charities, are going to be so happy to be able to get this money upon his death because he is still able to live on that income. So I love those stories because to me, we work so hard. We sacrifice daily, right? We work so hard and we want to be able to take our money and be able to give it to people that we love and charities that we believe in.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that with us. I always enjoy spending time with you. And yeah, you're one of the people I always find so much value in talking to. You're just walking integrity and you're a good soul and you help people. You help people. So thank you for being on the show again and for sharing with us and for always doing such a great job for everybody. And now that you're able to do even more and be more of a one-stop shop to help people with all these different issues, I think your company and you are even more valuable. Thank you so much. Always lovely to see you. Meritus Bott and Associates. If it's something that you need, be sure and contact Meritus right away. Thank you.